Hello and welcome back to the simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 24 of 24 from Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi. Well, this is it, the final race of this simulated season. Both championships have gone down to the wire, with Verstappen and Norris vying for the driver's crown, and Ferrari, McLaren and Red Bull fighting for the constructors. Both titles will be decided after 58 laps around the Yas Marina circuit, but who will come out on top in 2024? Here's how the drivers' standings shape up after last time out at Qatar. Lando Norris has a 4-point lead over Max Verstappen going into the final round, after a last gasp overtake prevented a dead heat between the pair. Tsunoda and Leclerc leapfrog Sainz into P3 and P4 respectively, sending the Spaniard down into P5. Hamilton reclaims 6th ahead of Alonso, while Russell remains P8 thanks to a poor showing in Qatar. Gasly remains 9th, but Albon rejoins the top 10, displacing Piastri. The constructor standings sees Ferrari's lead to McLaren shrink down to only 4 points, similar to the driver's standings, with Red Bull a further 15 points behind the Papaya team. Mercedes are officially out of contention in 4th, which isn't secure just yet due to RB being 31 points back in 5th. Aston Martin are locked into P6, not being able to move up or down in the standings. There's a fierce battle brewing for 7th, with Sauber and Williams tied on points, and Alpine being only 6 points behind the pair. Haas look likely to be at the bottom of the championship as they are 40 points behind the nearest team. Compared to the actual standings, Verstappen extends his lead over Norris thanks to some FIA shenanigans in Qatar, and the fact that Max is absolutely goated. Leclerc moves to only 8 points behind the McLaren driver, a close battle for P2 in the championship brewing indeed. Piastri remains 4th, now 19 points ahead of Sainz in P5. Russell solidifies P6 ahead of his teammate Hamilton, and Perez is now confirmed for a P8 finish. Alonso and Hülkenberg remain 9th and 10th respectively, but Gasly is now only 1 point behind Hülkenberg in 11th. As for the constructors, McLaren's lead to Ferrari goes down to 21 points heading into the final race, once again thanks to some FIA shenanigans. And Red Bull are now mathematically out of contention in P3. Mercedes are locked into P4, with Aston Martin looking extremely likely to lock down P5. The fight for P6 intensifies, with Alpine reclaiming the spot from Haas. RB remain in contention but are looking unlikely to clinch that 6th spot. Williams looks set to finish 9th, and Sauber finally get their first points of the season, but remain in last. Now for one last time we will find out who will be racing as for the Abu Dhabi GP. Tsunoda has been removed from the wheel one more time, and as I mentioned, Verstappen and Norris are both excluded from the selection. So, for the last time this year, let's spin the wheel and find out who will be racing as around Yas Marina. And the wheel has selected Daniel Ricciardo in the other RB. Dropped after the Singapore GP IRL, the Australian has remained in our simulated season, and now we can hopefully give him the proper send-off he deserves. Will Ricciardo get a justified ending to his career? Who will win the driver's title? Which team will come out on top in the constructors? It's time for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Welcome to qualifying. It is time to have some laps at the limit in Abu Dhabi.
Here we go then in the cockpit one last time as Daniel Ricciardo in the RB. I do apologise if my voice sounds a bit nasally. I'm recovering from a cold. Very bad, well, not very bad cold, but it was quite a rough cold. I'm still recovering from it. Nonetheless, here's Q1, the end of Q1. We're already P5 at the end of Q1, which is good enough for us to get into Q2, but we do lack some pace compared to the previous couple of races. And we've lost from Q1 Nico Hülkenberg, Kevin Magnussen, Valtteri Bottas, Alexander Albon and Logan Sargent. Both the Williams drivers out in Q1, both the Haas drivers out in Q1, along with one of the Sauber drivers, which could make the battle for 7th place in the constructors very interesting, considering Williams and Sauber are both part of that. As we move on to Q2 now, we end up coming P1 at the end of Q2, so it seems like we found some pace between qualifying sessions, and we've lost from Q2. Oscar Piastri and the McLaren is out in Q2, along with Hamilton, Alonso, Zhou and Stroll. Remember, McLaren are still fighting for the Constructors' title. They need Piastri up there with Norris getting some points, so Piastri being out in Q2 is not a good sign for them, especially considering both Red Bulls and both Ferraris are both into Q3. So McLaren not looking too good for the Constructors, but hey, the points are dished out on a Sunday. Hopefully Piastri can recover. As we go into Q3 now, We're doing our last flying lap of the day, the last qualifying lap of the season actually, as we set a first sector time identical to Charles Leclerc in P6, so we have not set the fastest sector 1 time. Considering there's only one braking point in sector 1, it's interesting to see how much I lost time there. As we go down for the first DRS straight now, heading into this very awkward chicane, it must be said. I believe it's turns 6 and 7 at this point. As we do have a little bit of a moment coming out on the right-hander there, going onto the second DRS straight. Moving down towards the sweeping left-hander that was only introduced a few years ago, back in 2021. Head for the left corner, we actually do set the fastest sector 2, despite us being quite behind in sector 1. So hopefully we still got some pace good enough to challenge at the front as we move now to the much more smoothing out sector 3, which still is not a very good sector, let's be honest, but nonetheless, not much they can do about that considering the facilities there. As we now move to the last corner for our last time in qualifying, we head towards the line. What position are we going to be in for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix?
Yes, excellent lap.
We're P1. We are P1. Pole position for Daniel Ricciardo in his last race in this simulated season and his career. Not in IRL anyway. Ricciardo is on pole in the RB. Lando Norris in P2 for McLaren with his championship rival Max Verstappen just behind him in P3. Carlos Sainz in P4. Both Alpines of Ocon and Gasly are 5th and 6th. Charles Leclerc in P7. Russell in 8th. Yuki Tsunoda is 9th. And Sergio Perez rounds out the top 10 for Red Bull. And there we go, that is the final qualifying session of the season done. The grid is set. It's now time to decide both championships as we move on to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
As the drivers begin to climb into their cars down on the grid, the excitement is really building at this magnificent circuit. We're just about ready to go racing for today's Formula One Grand Prix.
The drivers will be racing here at Yas Marina circuit through 21 corners and a lap distance of around 3.4 miles. There are a few opportunities to pass with long straights and DRS zones in 2 places, turns 8 and 11. Plenty of close racing then, plenty of speed and plenty of drama to be found in the laps ahead. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Daniel Ricciardo starts from pole position today, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid we have Verstappen, Sainz, Ocon, Gasly, Leclerc, Russell, Tsunoda, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Joe, Stroll, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Bottas, Albon and Logan Sargent. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. And we welcome you to the commentary box overlooking the circuit. I'm Alex Jakes and I'm joined by Anthony Davidson. It feels like an obvious question, but I think everyone wants to know, at this stage, are you nervous or excited?
Probably at the start of a race, it's where your heart rate's at its highest in anticipation. And you've got to be in the right mindset. You've got to be thinking there inside the car, what can go right? How can I be opportunistic rather than what can go wrong and how do I protect my position? Look forward and stay positive. It's easy to say, very hard to do when you're in that position.
I like how Crofty made a little cameo at the beginning there. But nonetheless, we're on the grid. Daniel Ricciardo on pole for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It looks like a 2-stop strategy is optimal here, medium, medium and hard. But as you'll see in a moment, there are definitely a few strategies in play. I decided to bump down my fuel because I don't think I'm going to need all that fuel for this race. As we now move on to the formation lap one last time in 2024. We're starting on the mediums, but as you can see on the left, there's a lot of tyre strategies going on. With Norris starting on the hards actually. Verstappen also starting on the mediums, Sainz, Ocon and Gasly all starting on the hards along with Russell, and Bottas down in 18th is the only one starting on the softs. Interesting call there for the Kick Sauber team. But yeah, Norris starting on the hards is a very interesting call there for McLaren. They're anticipating being quite quick at the end of this race, but they might get done off of the line by Verstappen, who's starting on the mediums as well. So this could be very interesting indeed. Remember that Leclerc's also starting on the medium, so he could be very quick in this first part of the race. So Norris is kind of hoping that he can hold on to P2 maybe from Verstappen and then be fast at the end to try and mitigate the effect of the tyres possibly. Or maybe the McLaren just think the harder tyres are better. But remember, Norris and Verstappen are the two championship rivals. They're starting second and third behind us, so there could be some fireworks going into turn 1. But nonetheless, we're on the grid once more for 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And as expected, Verstappen has jumped Norris off the line, and Norris is actually under attack from Carlos Sainz in P4. Leclerc going up to P5 thanks to his medium tyres. Norris just holds off Sainz for P3, but Verstappen up to P2 now, which is definitely not very good news for Lando right at the moment, because especially considering he's still being hounded by Carlos Sainz going into turn 5 now. Very interesting stuff there. Norris just holds on to P3. But ourselves and Verstappen are romping off ahead in front thanks to our medium tyres, and Verstappen looking to make a move down the straight as well, slipstreaming us down into the chicane, or turn 6 and 7 I believe. Norris still trying to hold off Sainz going into into turn 6, and as you saw, Verstappen try going down the inside for us as well, as Sainz actually cuts the corner and hits the bollard. So the bollard goes flying across the track, which puts him out of shape, and Norris reclaims P3. But as you can see, Verstappen hounding us down for P1. We just hold him off for the time being, but he's going to be a big threat once the DRS enables on the next lap. But nonetheless, we do hold on to the lead for the time being, but we've absolutely got away from Lando in P3. At the moment, Lando would still win the championship by 1 point, but it does depend on whether Verstappen gets the fastest lap. If Verstappen gets the fastest lap and finishes P2 and Norris P3, they would be tied on points. Going after this race. I actually wouldn't know who would win the championship at that point. I never really counted the wins each of them have. As we move on to lap 5 now, Verstappen has not overtaken us. We had to hold him off. And in a repeat of lap 1, we could see, oh, Jesus Christ, look at that, what happened there with me and Verstappen, nearly shoving Verstappen off the road there. Probably a little bit aggressive from myself. But we do hold on to P1, but Sainz is actually losing P4 to his teammate Charles Leclerc, who's on the inside of the sweeping left-hander. Leclerc, remember, is on the medium tyres, and Sainz is on the hards there. But Sainz just holding off Leclerc, but Leclerc trying to sweep around the outside, around this section actually. He gets the inside on the left-hander, which gives him the position. Very good move there from Charles, as he moves up to P4. Sainz P5, and it's good for them in the constructors, especially considering Piastri is down out the points currently. As we move on to that 7 now, Verstappen's still right behind us. He has DRS going down the straight. We try hounding him off. I move to the right to cover him off a little bit, but he tries going around the outside and he actually makes the move, but I make a lunge into turn 6, late on the brakes. We do make some contact actually, but no damage done for the pair of us, and we hold on to the lead for now. On lap 7, as Verstappen trying to hound us again now, because he has another dose of DRS going into the sweeping left-hander. This time we cover the inside line. He tries going on the outside. We brake a little bit later again and hold on to the position. As you can see, actually, Leclerc's overtaken Norris into P3, which means at the moment Verstappen would be champion if it finishes like this. So Leclerc doing Verstappen a solid there. As we move on to lap 8 now, and we move to the DRS zone again, going down the straight. I go a little bit aggressive to the right, and Verstappen goes to the right again, loses the rear end, and actually hits the sides of us. And as you can see, a part of his car has actually come off. I think his front wing end plate has come off the car. I think there could be some debate on to how aggressively I defended, but I don't think I defended that aggressively, especially considering the inside line was still very much in play there for Max Verstappen. He decided to follow us to the outside, and he has paid the price with his car very much nearly on spinning there. And he ended up hitting the side of us and losing his front wing end plate. And you can see the effects of that now as Leclerc moves ahead of Verstappen now into P2. And we actually do break away from the DRS from this train. But Verstappen losing places all the time, and this is critical for the championship. Norris now with a DRS going past his rival Max Verstappen on the straight, but Norris now up to P3 ahead of his championship rival, which means at the moment Norris would win this championship. Red Bull definitely need to pit that car because Verstappen is losing downforce all the while, and they definitely need to get the car in, maybe roll the dice a little bit with the strategy and see if they can recover those positions later on. But Verstappen not doing too well. As you can see, he's actually moved down to P5 now. They still haven't pitted him yet. He still has the fastest lap. but they still have not pitted Verstappen for a new front wing, which is very surprising indeed from the Red Bull mechanics. They may be thinking they could hold out as Leclerc tries to make a move for the lead, going around the outside into turn 6, but he drops it going through the corner. No contact made, he just dropped it on his own. And Leclerc is now tumbling down the order. He's now outside the points. No, is he? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. No, he's just down in P10, but he's got Gasly right behind him, so he might end up going out the points. As we move on to lap 15 now, it's now Lando Norris who's right behind us in P2, looking to make a move into P1. I tried to do the same move as I did before, tried to push it to the outside. He doesn't lose the rear, actually, like Verstappen does, but we just hold him off for P1 here. Norris has to stay behind, but he does get another dose of DRS down the second DRS straight. We try to recharge our battery a little bit, so we have battery going into the corner. We tried to make a very aggressive defensive move there on Norris going into the left-hander, but he decides to stick behind us because he knows he's in the prime position for the championship currently, along with Piastri actually, who's now actually gotten to the points thanks to Leclerc's spin. Piastri up to 7th, so McLaren looking actually pretty good for the Constructors' Championship right now. As we move on to lap 16, we make our first pit stop of the day. Our medium tyres not lasting as well as we expected, which probably makes sense for the hard runners at the start. Maybe the hard tyre is best, but nonetheless, we put on another set of mediums because we do need the hards to go to the end eventually when we do put them on. So we drop down to P18, maybe P19, with Sargent just getting in front of us as well. But we do have some clean air once we get past Sargent, so hopefully we can make this early pit stop work in our favour and relieve some pressure later on in the race when everyone else has to pit in as well. As we look at Verstappen once more, Verstappen's still tumbling down the order. They still have not pitted him for his front wing. Hopefully they do that at least in the first set of pit stops. But as you can see, Leclerc now going around the outside of Verstappen into turn 6, not dropping the car this time. He does get past Verstappen, and Verstappen's still tumbling down the order. Not very good for him and his championship chances, nor for Red Bull's Constructors' Championship for that matter, as Verstappen tries to make the move back on Leclerc going into the sweeping left-hander, but doesn't do so, and Gasly now looking to overtake Verstappen as well. But it's all gone horribly wrong for Max, with his front wing end plate costing him a lot of downforce, and Red Bull being very weird and not pitting him at all, which I don't know what they're doing there. But we move to our race now. We dive down the inside of Sargent going into turn 5, and we make the move stick. We're up to P18. We might make a few more moves as well. There's a huge DRS train in front of us, starting off with Lance Stroll in P17, who all these cars have not pitted yet, so we're still net in front of them. As we dive down the inside of Lance Stroll into turn 5 once more, going into the left-hander there. And we do make the move stick. We're up to P17 now. Next up is Albon and Joe in front of him as well in P15. There's a huge train of cars here that we got to try and overtake as quickly as possible. So to start with that, we make a huge large down the inside. Everyone broke very early into that left-hander. And we make 2 moves on Joe and Albon. We're now to P15 in this race. And now we've got the 2 Hasses of Hülkenberg and Magnussen. Starting off with Nico Hülkenberg, who breaks very early to his right-hander, which allows us to sneak up down the inside. He gives us enough room. We're up to P14 now. Next up is Kevin Magnussen in the other Haas, who we're basically pushing along the corner. We're that much faster than them, thanks to our new set of tyres. As we now go into the final corner, Hamilton and Verstappen actually they're pitting. Hopefully they replace the front wing on Verstappen. We dive down the inside of Magnussen, and we're now back up to P10. Make that P9. Because of all the cars pitting in, so we're back in the points now. Remember, these cars in front of us have not pitted yet, so we're still in the net race lead, but we do want to try and get past them as much as possible before they hold us up too much and cost us any positions. Next up is Alonso, once again into turn 5, dive down the inside with much fresher tyres, make the move stick. We're up to P8 now on lap 19 of 58. We're 1/3 through this race already, and so far it looks like advantage Norris and advantage McLaren in the Constructors currently. So McLaren looking to do the double as it stands, but there's still plenty of race left to go as we move on to lap 20 now. Gasly now trying to defend on the inside. We try going around the outside of him into turn 5. I think some contact was made. We do lose the rear a little bit going out the corner, but we just make the move stick. We're now at P6 ahead of Pierre Gasly. Next up on the road is Perez. As we see now the leading cars are Norris and Sainz and I think Russell. Yeah, Russell also coming in as well. 3 cars coming in for their first pit stops of the day. Norris putting on another set of hards, which is interesting, but I'm not too surprised actually, because it seems like the hard tyres is actually the best tyres to be on right now anyway. The mediums don't last very long, so the hards do have a longer tyre life for obvious reasons, but also they don't have that much of a performance drop either. As we now build to lap 22, because the cars are pitting in front of us, we're now at the P2, make that soon to be P1 because we're slipstreaming, got DRS on Perez, going down into the chicane of turn 6 and 7, we sweep around the outside, and we retake the lead of this race. Very good stuff there. Norris gets P3 ahead of Bottas now, so us and Norris are now separated by just Perez. So hopefully we can hold off for a little bit, at least until the next set of pit stops. As we see now Sainz and Piastri battling it out for P5. Once again, very instrumental for the constructors. Piastri having a very good race, in fact. A very good recovery drive from Piastri as he sweeps around the outside of Carlos Sainz. Up into P5 now, which means both McLaren drivers are now ahead of both the Ferrari drivers, which means McLaren are definitely in the prime seat for this constructors title. Ferrari got some work to do in order to keep their lead, but it's not looking very likely at the moment, especially considering Leclerc's mistake earlier, as Norris now slipstreams past Perez, gets the DRS on him, moves up to P2, very understandable. Perez has not pitted in yet, while Norris has pitted in. Norris has much fresher tyres than Perez, so not too surprising. Norris up to P2 now, is now looking set to hunt us down for P1. As we now look at Charles Leclerc, remember he made a mistake earlier, spinning around trying to overtake us around the outside. He's now trying to save move on our teammate, Yuki Tsunoda now, going into the left-hander. Makes the move stick. Tsunoda trying to stick around the outside actually, though gets much better traction coming out the corner. So which means Tsunoda holds on to the position for now, but Leclerc has DRS once again, so he's going to challenge him again, going into the sweeping left-hander. Hamilton not too far behind either. Leclerc trying to go around the outside of Yuki Tsunoda, but Yuki Tsunoda holding on in there. There's a very good battle between the RB and the Ferrari drivers. As they now move to the complicated section of Sector 3, Leclerc trying to go down the inside, but Tsunoda just holding off on the outside. He still holds on going into the inside of the double left-hander, and he just keeps the position ahead of Charles Leclerc. Very good battle there between the two drivers. Hopefully we'll see more of that next year. In IRL, really, but it depends on how well the RB driver, RB car is, and whether Tsunoda actually ends up in the main Red Bull scene next year, however unlikely that is. As we move on to lap 32 now, we're coming in for our second and final pit stop of the race, and also the season. This is our final pit stop of the season. Very interesting considering we started the season way back in February. We put on the hard tyres for the rest of the race, 26 laps to go. We're over halfway through. Norris takes the lead of the race, but he does need to pit in one more time. Along with the cars who just overtook us, they all need to pit in one more time. As we rejoin in 10th place, still in the points. Ahead of Stroll, but just behind Gasly there. We've got to re-overtake Gasly once more, but that shouldn't be too difficult considering we're much fresher tyres than he is. So, there we go. As we said before, lap 33, we try making the same move we did around the outside, but we do make contact going into the corner. I don't think Gasly was trying to squeeze us out there. We didn't really expect it. No damage done, but we do get the DRS, and we blast by Gasly into 9th position there. And we got 3 more cars in front of us. We've got Hamilton, Leclerc, and Tsunoda. But Tsunoda and Leclerc still battling out for P6, in fact. So, very interesting fight there. But Hamilton has joined the party now. And we look set to join the party as well. It looks like a 4-way battle for P6 in this race. Remember, these cars haven't pitted in front of us, but they go 3 wide into the left-hander. We try to make it 4 wide going to the left-hander, but instead we do the switchback. We take the inside line, go through the left-hand corner, and not only do we overtake Leclerc and Hamilton, we also overtake our teammate as well. We make 3 overtakes thanks to an amazing switchback at the left-hander. What a move there from Ricciardo, moving himself up from P9 to P6. Never mind that he was on fresher tyres. That is one of the moves of the season, no doubt. As he now moves on to P5 now. I believe a car in front of us has pitted. So we now got Russell, Sainz, and I believe Gasly's behind us. Ocon. Ocon is in P2. It's the other Alpine, in fact. In P2 currently, who hasn't pitted yet. These cars, well, I haven't pitted in for their second stop, I should say. None of these cars are pitting in for their second stop as we now go side by side with George Russell down the DRS straight. We both have DRS. We put a little bit of battery on, and we move up to P4 as we see Sainz trying to make a move on Ocon around the outside of him into turn 5. not turn 5, turn 6. We try making a switchback now as we go 3 wide nearly once again, going down the second DRS straight. We blast by Sainz, and we now also blast by Ocon as well, putting us up into P2. Remember, we're still in the net lead because Norris does need to pit in one more time for a set of medium or maybe soft tyres. As we move on to lap 42, speaking of the devil, Lando Norris does come in for his second and final pit stop. Looks like it is a set of mediums going on in the McLaren, and indeed it is. A quick through pit stop for him, exactly what he needed, and he's on his way. We retake the lead of this race as we see Sainz and Russell both coming in for also medium tyres as well, I believe. But Russell with a faster pit stop allows the Mercedes driver to jump Sainz in the pit lane. So Russell now to P4 ahead of Sainz in P5, which will become P3 and P4 once everyone else pits in, such as Ocon and Piastri and whatnot. No, actually, I don't think Piastri does need to pit in again. So Piastri, I think, has already done his second pit stop. He's done a huge undercut, which means now the McLaren drivers are 3rd and 4th. Make that 2nd and 3rd after Ocon pits in. Oh my goodness me. As for Max, though, they still haven't replaced his front wing. He still has a front wing with an end plate missing. Red Bull, what are you doing? What are you playing at? Your driver was trying to compete for the championship and you've absolutely let him down. And he's just trundling around in last with he can't do anything about it. As we now look at Kevin Magnussen now, his engine has gone poof. Has his season comes to a miserable end pretty much. Hulkenberg not really doing a good job at all. They're very much locked into last. And Magnussen becomes the first retirement of this Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. As we now move on to lap 48, Piastri under attack from George Russell. George Russell with much fresher tyres than Piastri. Blast by him into P3, which means we now have a Ricciardo, Norris and Russell podium looking very likely to do that. But Piastri still holding the P4, a very good race for him indeed. After a very disappointing qualifying, and McLaren very much looks set to take the Constructors' crown. As Norris is now right behind us, moving on to lap 53 now, going down the main straight. And Norris actually blasts by us on the main straight, surprisingly, without the DRS. We were trying to save battery, but we kind of had a lapse in judgment, and Norris blasts by us into the lead of this Grand Prix. So Norris, not content with winning the Drivers' Championship with Max Verstappen, who's all the way down in 19th, wants to make a statement and win this race as well, but we're not going to make it easy for him. As we go on to the first DRS straight now, we will have DRS going down this straight, which should give us plenty of opportunity to retake the lead as we now take the slipstream of the McLaren driver. Norris trying to go on the inside. We move to the outside, try to go sweeper on the outside of turns 6 and 7, and it looks like we do so. The camera angle not very good there. We take the inside line, going for that corner, and we just take the lead. But now Norris is going to have DRS down the second straight, which should give him an ample amount of opportunity to pounce back and retake the lead, but he decides not to do that and just holds on behind us for the time being. It's going to be a very interesting fight to the finish indeed of this race and indeed this season. Can Ricciardo take one more victory before his F1 departure? As we move on to the final lap now, Norris still behind us, but again only just behind us now in P2. Ocon's actually moved up to P4 ahead of Piastri, it looks like, on the left, so Ocon having a very good race as well. Alpine looking set to take 7th in the Constructors, especially considering both Williams and both Saubers are currently outside the points. Bottas trying to fight Tsunoda for the points paying positions, but it doesn't look very likely at the moment. As we move on to the first DRS straight now, we save up all our battery as much as possible as we go side by side down the straight into the chicane. We take the inside line. There seems to be a bit of contact made. As we're moving to the corner, we break a little bit later than Lando, and we keep the lead. But Lando will have one more opportunity with the second DRS zone. Going down the second DRS zone now, he activates his DRS, but it looks like he's quite far back because he was out of shape going for the chicane, and he doesn't trouble us at all. So it's looking very likely that we're going to take the win for RB here. But nonetheless, this race has proven to be very interesting. Verstappen's charge for the championship was kind of doomed from the moment he made contact with us on the straight. It was of his own volition. He lost the rear end. He could have taken the inside line. He did not. And now he has paid the price with Norris in P2 and Piastri in P4. It's going to be Ricciardo who takes the win at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. But it's going to be Norris who wins the Drivers' Championship and McLaren take the Constructors. Woo! McLaren do the double in our simulated season. Norris is the 2024 simulated drivers champion. McLaren take the Constructors ahead of Ferrari. The double has been done. McLaren are delighted.
What a super Ricciardo, who takes the checkered flag.
A great display of dominance today by this driver. They led from lights out to the flag at the end, led every lap of the race. Brilliant stuff by them, and excited to see what more they can do in future races.
And it's time now for the podium celebrations, and how well deserved is this one. This is a team all about giving young, talented drivers an opportunity to race and to win. RB are your winners here today.
So there we go, the 2024 season is done. Ricciardo gets the fitting end he deserves to his F1 career, but it's the second place man right there, Lando Norris, who is the 2024 Simulated Drivers Champion, and McLaren also take the Constructors title as well. They do the double, their first Constructors title since 1998 and their first Drivers title since 2008. McLaren back on top after so many years of being in the midfield. They are finally back at the summit, and good on them. But after 58 laps of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is Daniel Ricciardo, who is the race winner. Lando Norris in P2. George Russell gets one more podium for Mercedes in P3. Oscar Piastri, starting from 11th, goes up to 4th. A very good recovery drive from him, and did exactly what he needed to do to help for McLaren take the Constructors. Carlos Sainz in P5, both the Alpines of Ocon and Gasly P6 and P7, good points to them in their fight for P7 in this Constructors. Lewis Hamilton in P8, Sergio Perez in P9 and Valtteri Bottas gets one more point for the Kick Sauber team in 10th. As for the rest of the classified standings, Charles Leclerc ends up P11, very disappointing for him, what could have been if he hadn't spun out of P2 at the early stages of the race. Yuki Tsunoda in P12, Alonso 13th, Albon 14th, Stroll in 15th, Nico Hülkenberg 16th, Zhou Guanyu in 17th, Logan Sargent in P18, and then Max Verstappen, after making contact with us at the early stage of the race and losing his front wing end plate, and Red Bull having a mare and not changing his front wing during the pit stops, ends up P19 and last in this race. And we had one retirement, which was Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. And there we go, that's the 2024 season done and dusted. Let's have a look at the standings one last time as we end this season. Lando Norris is our Drivers' Champion with 292 points, 22 points ahead of Max Verstappen in P2. Yuki Tsunoda holds on to his third place finish. He does indeed end up in the top 3 after leading the championship for quite a while in the early stages of the season. Charles Leclerc does end up with his teammate Carlos Sainz, but only by 1 point, separating the two Ferrari drivers. They end up 4th and 5th. Lewis Hamilton holds on to P6 ahead of last year's simulated champion Fernando Alonso. A bit of a disappointing season for him, he's down in P7. George Russell remains in P8 despite getting a podium. Pierre Gasly is in 9th, and Oscar Piastri does end up in the top 10 thanks to his 4th place finish, displacing Alexander Albon, who moves down to P11. Sergio Perez, a very disappointing season for him in the simulated season and in real life. He ends up P12, only 1 point ahead of the departing Daniel Ricciardo in the RB. Imagine if Ricciardo had got that fastest lap. He could have ended up ahead of Perez. Zhou Guanyu ends up 14th with 77 points ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas in 15th. Kevin Magnussen down in 16th, Stroll down in 17th. Hülkenberg, disappointing season for him simulated wise, he's down at 18th. Logan Sargent does not finish last, he is in 19th. The person who does end up finishing last, the departing Esteban Ocon from Alpine. He moves to Haas next year, but he ends his final season with Alpine last with only 24 points. As for the Constructors, McLaren do take the Constructors' crown with 419 points, 16 points ahead of Ferrari. McLaren hadn't led the Constructors' Championship at all this season, but they do take the victory at last. Ferrari in second with 403. Red Bull in third with 376. Mercedes do claim fourth with 344, along with RB claiming fifth with 318 points to their name. Aston Martin remains sixth. 244 points to their name. Alpine do move up to 7th. They do take the 7th place in the championship with 157 points. Sauber move down to 8th, 1 point ahead of Williams, who are 9th with 149 points. And then Haas are last with 103 points. And there we go, that is the 2024 season done and dusted. Now, the big question is, will I be doing a 2025 simulated season? And the answer to that is no. Main reason for that is the F1 24 is terrible. It's not a good game at all. I haven't had really much fun playing this game, doing these videos. It has been fun to see how the season goes along, but the driving experience in general and the game itself has just been absolutely woeful, and I don't have much hope for next year's game either. I have been the next year's game is going to be more of the same, so I'm not too confident that these games are going to get much better with Codemasters at the helm, especially with EA looming over them as well. So I have no interest in buying next year's game, and I don't really want to play any more of this game after today. So no more of that as well. And also F1 is just kind of not fun at the moment, and the Qatar GP has really kind of emphasized that. The FIA is putting on a clown show at this point, and the fact that all these F1 fans are just at each other's throats has made watching the sport kind of a chore, really. It's been kind of miserable. So yeah, me falling out of love with F1 and also the fact that these games are terrible has constituted in me not doing this season again, well, next year. So you won't be seeing any of his videos next year. Maybe I'll come back to them in the future if the games do improve and F1 improves in general. But for now, this will be the final F1 video, the final F1 season. I've been doing this for 6 years, I think. I started doing this in 2019, so this is my 6th season of doing this in a row, but I think it's time to put it to bed, honestly. So yeah, no more F1 videos for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. So with that being said, hopefully you enjoyed all these races. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this season in general. It has been fun to see how the season has panned out, and it has panned out in quite an interesting way. So with all that, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, give my channel a subscribe, because there will be more videos coming, just not F1 ones. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you all for the next video.